The rain fell in hard, unsympathetic sheets as I hurried down Rue de Seine, my portfolio hugged tight to my chest. Water splattered up from battered cobblestones, turning my shoes slick and cold. I kept my eyes on the yellow-glow windows of the Gallery Moraux, ignoring the growing ache in my stomach, ignoring, too, the snickers that rang out from under the navy-blue awning at the entrance. Marie, my sister, leaned against the stone wall, umbrella propped on her shoulder. "You're soaked, Camille," she called out, almost gleeful. Her voice carried the smugness I'd grown so used to. She was flanked by Pierre, my cousin, arms folded, mouth in a half-smile, already savoring the moment he thought was coming. Inside, the gallery was warm and brimming with humidity and expensive perfume. White walls bore photographs, award-winning, elegant, unobtrusive. I felt disheveled and out of place as I made my way to the reception. My hair clung to my forehead, my fingers raw and shaking a little as I unzipped my portfolio. The director, Madame Chevalier, stood waiting, petite and severe, silver hair pulled back in an immaculate bun. "Mademoiselle Lefebvre," she said, "you are late." "I'm sorry, madame, the weather I didn't finish." She raised a hand in polite dismissal, turning back to the crowd of gallery regulars. The board sat at a high table, glasses of Chablis in their hands, faces tight with anticipation. I set out my prints, the ones I'd spent months chasing across Paris in alleyways and protest marches and eternal nights, and waited. Madame Chevalier glanced down, lips pursed. "Your subjects are disturbing," she said. "They are the city," I replied, voice trembling. Pierre, who'd wormed his way inside, snorted. Marie hid her smile behind a gloved hand. Madame Chevalier waved her hand over the prince, the man with blood on his shirt, the woman in the neon hijab during a riot, children playing in crumbling passageways. "We prefer art that uplifts," she said. "Your work is, how do you say, sensationalist." She turned her back to me. I stood there, humiliation burning through skin and bone as the board murmured agreement. My family's delight in that moment was sharp, almost palpable. Marie tried for a look of pity and failed. Pierre just rolled his eyes. "Why don't you try something respectable?" he whispered. "It's a real job." I gathered my prints, fighting tears, and walked back out into the rain. The city lights blurred through my watery eyes. I trudged north to my shoebox flat in the 11th arrondissement and listened to the rain lash against the windows until dawn. After that night, something settled tight inside me. I called in sick to my job at the boulangerie, spent the afternoon in bed, then forced myself up and into the world. My father's voice echoed in memory. "You're chasing stories that no one cares about. You shame the family, Camille." He'd meant it. And tonight I'd proved him right, hadn't I? But the city was never still. I grabbed my battered Nikon and coat, slammed the door behind me and slipped into the streets. If I couldn't belong among the artists, I would belong among the ghosts of Paris, the ones no one else cared to see. I began to lose myself in the work. I covered encampments under the périphérique, rallies in République, stories that hovered at the edge of violence. For a while, nothing happened. My photos, splashed onto amateur blogs, went without notice. One night I posted a 3-part series about women living in an abandoned rail station, their stories quietly devastating, accompanied by spare, bleak images. At 5 a.m., a message blinked onto my cracked iPhone. An editor from La Liberté wanted an interview. I went, sleep-deprived, hungry, and too desperate to be nervous. The editor, Joseph, was pale and thin and tired, but his eyes danced when he saw the prints. "You have the city's wounds in your lens," he said. "Let me show you how we cover the news." For months, I shadowed beat reporters, learning to chase leads and dig deeper. I built trust with the people everyone ignored: refugees, the city's street-level revolutionaries, undocumented families hiding in abandoned shops. They trusted me, and I became invisible, a shadow moving among them with camera and notebook. I started exposing stories of corruption, a housing scheme siphoning money away from Paris's poor, police intimidation of immigrant vendors. Photos accompanied every piece. Each story brought a fresh round of rage from my family. "You'll end up dead in a ditch," my mother told me over the phone, her voice raw with fear and exasperation. "No one's proud of a daughter who brings shame like this." She hung up before I could answer. I fought down the sense of rejection, let it boil into a kind of grim serenity. All I wanted was the truth exposed, the world made a little brighter by it. Night after night, I returned home exhausted, usually alone, sometimes with bruises from rough nights or run-ins with the police. I began to sleep less and dream only in the harsh flashes of my camera. A year after that first gallery rejection, I was sent to cover a protest that ballooned into a riot along Boulevard Beaumarchais. Molotov cocktails flashed in the gloom, police charged and retreated and charged again. I stayed close to the chaos, camera whirring, breath coming in short, scared bursts. I shut my mind to the fear and focused. Framing, capturing, recording. The photo that would change everything happened by accident. A teenage boy in a blue sweatshirt, his face twisted in terror as he clutched a handkerchief to his mouth, running from clouds of tear gas. I posted the shot and went to sleep. By dawn, my phone was flooded with messages. News outlets worldwide wanted syndication. Human rights groups asked permission to use the image. Refugees and activists sent messages of support, and for the first time my name trended on social media, not as a washed-out failure, but as someone who'd shown something raw and real. La Liberté sent me to Syrian camps outside Paris. The stories poured in from all sides. I worked every hour, interviewing, photographing, writing, then editing late into the night. Each scare, each new round of anger from my family added layers to my resolve. When a major magazine in London asked if I'd want a grant, I took it. I left Paris for 6 months, chasing stories through Athens, Istanbul, and then back into France, following the paths of displaced families. My work was being shown in small exhibitions, nothing like the Gallery Morat, but still it was seen. The shame I'd carried fell away with every new assignment. Sometimes, alone in my room, I'd cry for the girl who once stood shivering under a wet blue awning, desperate for approval she'd never get. But life kept moving, and so did I. It was years later when my invitation came from the Musée d'Art Moderne itself. They were hosting a collective exhibition about journalism in the urban world and wanted to feature my work. I was 31, rooms fuller with accolades but still carrying echoes of the old wounds. Part of me wanted to forget my family entirely. I had tried, but Paris is a small city. Old friends sent word Pierre was now managing a real estate office. Marie painted miniatures in a Montmartre shop. My mother sent a half-hearted email, congrats if it's true. Your father is unwell these days. Alone in my studio, surrounded by black and white prints, I debated going back, but inside something quiet and serene, and also somewhere still angry stirred. I wanted them to see. So I arranged for tickets. There's an exhibition, my work is featured, I wrote. Marie replied within minutes. Will there be free wine? Pierre, true to form, simply texted a thumbs up. Opening night, I wore the only good suit I owned. It was navy, serious, the kind worn by women who brokered peace deals or ran newsrooms. I arrived before the doors opened, walking the hushed halls while stewards hung last-minute placards. There was my photo 3 meters wide of the boy in the blue sweatshirt. Underneath, Camille Lefebvre, Paris 2018. I waited, eating a slice of stale quiche from the staff lounge, for my family. My heart stuttered, and not only from nerves. Dare I hope they'd finally see not just the proof but the pain I'd carried through all the years, the cold nights, the fear I didn't know. They arrived just before 7 altogether. My parents, older now, more brittle around the eyes, Marie hair swept back with gold barrettes, Pierre with an unearned air of importance. My mother nodded stiffly, eyes darting over chevron floors. It's very big, she managed, glancing at the crowds. The room swelled with visitors. A curator spoke about the revolutionary power of journalism, her voice echoing off marble walls. Tonight we honor courage, not just the courage to record but to live among those too often unseen. Applause washed through the crowd. I stood to the side, blood drumming in my ears. Then something shifted. People circled around the image of the boy, reading the story, staring, talking. One woman started to weep openly. An older man pressed his hand to the glass, murmured merci. Someone asked if the photographer was present. The curator beckoned me forward. I looked back at my family, Marie stunned quiet, Pierre mouth half open, my mother gripping her purse white-knuckled. My father unexpectedly was misty-eyed. There was silence as dozens of faces turned to me. People began to clap. I walked out in front, feeling the soft pressure of serenity alongside the old burn of anger. The curator introduced me. Camille Lefebvre refused comfort for truth. Tonight she gives us Paris unvarnished. I spoke for a minute about the boy. His name was Samir. He'd survived and come back to thank me after the photo went viral. About the families I'd lived with, the pain and pride of the Paris most never saw. Applause again. As it faded, I saw Marie wiping her eyes and Pierre, for the first time in his life, unable to speak. My mother reached for my hand. Camille, she whispered, I didn't know it was like this. I'm sorry, we should have trusted you. A tide of long-held bitterness threatened to choke me, but I let it go. The city beyond the polished glass of the museum was soaking in dusk, lights blooming gold on the river. I let my family stand with me, phone cameras flashing, reporters from major news outlets asking questions. I saw in their faces the awe, the slow, dawning respect. Later, I stood out on the steps, breathing the sweet, electric Parisian air. My father came and leaned beside me. You know, he said softly, I worried you'd die for nothing, but you gave a boy a future. That's not nothing. We lingered a while in fragile silence. The streets hummed. I watched families passing below, some laughing, some heads bowed against the wind. My anger had been fire in youth, but now everything felt still. Triumphant, yes, but gentle too. Walking home well after midnight, I passed the old Gallery Moro. The windows were dark, the awning limp and faded. I pressed my palm to the cold glass and smiled, a soft, private acknowledgement of the life I'd survived and the streets that had made me. Paris was harsh and beautiful and unyielding, but she belonged to me, and now I belonged to her, finally, soaked in rain, carved by struggle, tempered by anger, but walking forward serene into the light.